The Monkey 2025 is a generally poorly received movie. Most people hate it. Some people like it. But do you know why? Today we're going to talk about the good, the bad, the everything on the first episode of Why It Sucks. The Monkey is a 2025 release from director and writer Osgood Perkins, coming off of his successful movie Longlegs. This adapts a 1980 Stephen King short story where two brothers are cursed by a monkey who kills people in their lives with freak accidents like Final Destination. Basically, that's the general premise. It doesn't get much deeper than that. There's turmoil because of the monkey's actions, I guess, with the brothers, but otherwise, yeah, it's a pretty straightforward story. Now, I want to make this clear very early. While I do think this movie is a tonal fucking mess, I don't think it sucks. I think the strong aspects of this movie: great cinematography, or okay, good visuals, I guess. The movie looks good. The plot is kind of whatever. The first half of the movie is good. The second half of the movie is kind of but bad plots can make good movies. The main problem with this movie is, like I said, the tone. Tone is the word of the day, so bear with me. I'm gonna say it a lot. The beginning of this movie with Adam Scott is, like, in my opinion, tonally the strongest or most consistent part of the movie. It starts like very campy, extremely campy, like so campy. And we kind of lose that throughout, and then we kind of gain it back throughout, so it just feels like jarring, I guess, a little confusing, a little bit like, what are we doing, you know, how do we get here, etc. But the beginning, the very first scene with the harpoon thing, he's explaining the rules of the monkey. The pawn shop guy dies, you see his intestines get pulled out. It looks very unrealistic, obviously, but cool prosthetics, just cool. And then it cuts to him like trying to set on fire, screaming with the flamethrower. Like, everything is just over the top, right? And at that point, I'm sure someone was checked out, but I don't think the general audience is like, yeah, this isn't it. This could work for the whole movie. But when we go into like the flashback of the kids, that part of the movie tonally is a lot more serious than the rest of the movie, which again, that works. But if we're gonna jump back and forth between that and other parts of the movie, like the funeral scene, it doesn't work at all. It is very confusing. I don't know what to feel. Should I be laughing? Should I be sad? Should I be scared? Etc. It doesn't feel like a comedy or a horror movie. It just feels like nothing. With that being said, the first like 30 minutes of the movie are pretty strong. The kid actors carry the fuck out of this movie. They're pretty solid. More specifically, I don't think the kid portion of the movie is tonally like super serious per se. It's just more consistent. Like how the beginning campy scene is very consistent, the kid portion of the movie is very consistent with whatever tone they're trying to establish. You know, there's a voiceover of the main character reflecting on his childhood, talking about what happened with the brothers and how they got to where they are now, deaths that they saw, etc. Where the problems start to come in is when the deaths start to happen. How they're played in the movie versus how they're portrayed in like the trailers is very falsely advertised, for a lack of a better word. Not to say that the advertising was misleading, but it was misleading. Like, if this movie was portrayed as a comedy, I think people would be less pissy about what it was. But the trailers of this movie are very much serious. Not serious, like, I don't know. It does look... The tone of the trailers for this movie is a lot darker than what the actual movie is, specifically like the monkey itself in the movie. I feel like the monkey is portrayed almost as like, not a joke, but a lot of the deaths in the movie are comedic. It's not like a scary thing. It's just, this person died, this person died. Sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's whatever. Regardless, in the trailer, it is very much an ominous, scary thing. It is not that in the movie whatsoever. Which again is an expectation thing. If this movie was marketed as a comedy with a little freaky monkey thing that kills people and it's gonna be funny, cool, people would go see it. Maybe less people would see it, but the people that went would know what to expect. The movie was marketed as something completely different, so when people watched it and got what the movie was, they did not like that shit. Like I mentioned earlier, a specific turning point in the movie is the funeral scene. I'm not sure the actor's name, but not to shit on the actor or anything, I'm just gonna assume this is what he was told to do. But it's like, I don't think an audience has a problem with laughing at like a death or whatever the case is. Like, this isn't that. It's just that scene isn't funny, you know. It's just like a guy talking talking about someone that just died and he's just like cussing, and it's like cool, but like I don't feel scared, nor do I feel like laughing, so I'm just like watching the screen for nothing. I want my time back at this point. That's how it feels for a lot of people, which I don't blame them. Like, what's the point of it? What is the actual point of that scene? What is it trying to say? Not that every scene needs to say something, but what's the point of that scene included in the movie? What's it doing for us? Nothing. It's just confusing the audience. Now compare this to something like This Is the End. Obviously that movie is not seen as like the best movie in the world or whatever, but the general reception of that movie wasn't like it was the worst thing people have ever seen. Well, maybe it was. Honestly, I was young when that came out, but I feel like that movie is very much, you know what you're gonna get. You probably have a better idea knowing if you're gonna like it or not. Whereas this movie, a lot of people probably thought they would like it based off the marketing, and they got something completely different. They didn't want it, and that sucks. So that's what it is. Another key inconsistency was the cheerleader thing. Like, there is a world where that works in the movie, or there's a world where the movie is that, you know, if the whole movie is the end, whole world ending, cheerleaders cheering at the deaths, etc., that fits. But when you try to shoehorn an actual emotional plot line with the father and son and brothers, no one cares. Like, I don't think it's possible or realistic for you to make a movie like this with shit as absurd as it is and expect people to take a break in the middle of all that and be like, wow, this is so emotional. I don't think people care enough, nor do they have the capacity to just invest into the movie that much. I'm not gonna lie. Now again, stuff like this can work. I feel like a movie like Booksmart is a good example of this. There's a lot of, not a lot, but there are some more absurd things in that movie, and it is a comedy, but there are some more strong, heartfelt moments in the movie, despite that that movie is marketed as a coming of age movie towards a certain demographic of people. Nobody was confused at what they got when they watched that movie. So yeah. Now, to play devil's advocate, the Monkey's original short story isn't the most serious thing in the world from what I understand. It's not like tonally the most serious thing, which is fine. This movie does not need to be a dark whatever. Like, it doesn't need to be that. My main point is the movie was marketed as something completely different, and the movie within itself is tonally mismatched. There's a lot going on. The different parts of the movie don't fit the other parts of the movie. Now, on a more personal note, similar to Midsummer, this movie feels to me like a movie that was needed to be made by the director, not necessarily for the audience, but just because they needed to make it. I don't know if that's corny or cliche to people, but that's just kind of what I think the situation is. Osgood Perkins specifically has talked about how his parents unfortunately have both passed away, and how that impacted the making of this movie and just his life in general. Processing that and coming to terms with that, being able to use humor to cope with that and things of that effect. So yeah, I understand it completely through the guise of that. It doesn't make the movie like magically good all of a sudden, but it does give me perspective as to why the movie was made, I suppose. And again, this isn't to like take away from anyone's criticisms with the movie, because at the end of the day, criticisms are always going to be valid. If you don't like it, you don't like it, and that's okay. But I think it's very interesting that musicians, for example, if they make a song that is quote unquote emotional for them, etc., people can accept that it's not for the charts, and an artist needed to express something, just say something, convey a message, etc., and people don't really have a problem with that. It is just what it is, you know. Whether that song finds its demographic or not, it's irrelevant. But for movies, it's seen more so for the audience, you know, like art is for an audience, and that's okay. But if a movie is very specifically about something, like this movie or Midsummer or whatever the case is, if someone doesn't like it, it's easier for them to say that movie was just ass, why did they make that? And the general consensus is never like, I think the director just needed to convey something, just needed to say something. It wasn't necessarily gonna do well, and that obviously can be a cop-out. You know, anyone can say, well, my movie was just therapeutic for me. Obviously it wasn't gonna do well, but sometimes it might genuinely be that for some people, which again doesn't take away from people's criticisms. It's just interesting to think about, I guess. So yeah, with all that being said, this movie is kind of a mess tonally, writtenly, all of it. But does the movie suck? I don't think it sucks. I think it is okay for what it is. I think it exists for a reason, and I think that is okay by me. Now, if you don't like this movie, I understand. I don't think anyone is gonna argue that you need to like the movie, you know, like you got that. You got that. Well, that is it. That's all I have to say about The Monkey. This is the first episode of Why It Sucks. I think the next one might be Men 2022, or I don't know. You can let me know what you want to see. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you want to see next. Thanks for watching to the end. And yeah, this has been DoubleCreature. I will see you next time. Goodbye.